Hi. My name is Maddie. This is Visible Hands. Not the first episode technically, but the first real one. And today I kind of just wanted to go into a little bit of discussion on overconsumption or consumption. I've been seeing that word, the term overconsumption, being used a lot recently in media. I mean, for a while, not just recently. I kind of just want to give my take on it. Um, Specifically, I this is actually so embarrassing. I I was listening to music, and there's this song by a band that I really like. They're called The Warning. The song is called Consume, and it's just about overconsumption. And I was listening to the song, and then I was thinking about them performing at Lollapalooza recently, and I'm not even sure if that's Lollapalooza. I don't. Anyway, um, and kind of them performing it to a bigger audience and seeing that song kind of reach more people. And if we need any proof, I love The Warning. Like, I love them so much. It's embarrassing. Anyway, I was just kind of thinking about how this is they're pretty popular. I think they're at almost 2 million monthly listeners now, and they're more so popular in South America, I would say, than the US. Maybe, I don't know their exact analytics, but they are from Mexico, and thus it would make sense if they were a little more popular in South America, South and Central America than the US. But I don't know. I don't know. I'll I'm sure there will be something in the description about the official statistics. Um but I was thinking, it's reaching more of an audience, and this definitely isn't the only reference that I've seen recently to overconsumption. And this this song Consume is on an album it's 2026 right now, so the album is 2 years old. Um and it's it was it's I started noticing it being more presented in media and more prevalent right around 2023, 2024, which is when this album was produced, um released at least. And that's not to say that it hasn't been a topic of discussion the entire time. I'm sure it definitely has been, but I just personally have been seeing it more and more on my feed. And of course, this could be influenced by the fact that I'm an econ major and I like things that are econ related, so algorithms feed me things like that. And it's not just like recent times, but I feel like it's been amping up more and more, and especially right now, as there are a lot of discussions about things like tariffs and trade policies and how that is kind of affected by the different political things that are going on within the US, and just kind of how consumption or overconsumption would factor into all of that. And obviously, I don't, it's nothing is, I don't have the exact statistics as to, or information as to how different things are affecting different things. That's definitely something I should have come to this discussion with, but something I nonetheless did not. And this is more just me talking about how I feel at this point. Um, I have definitely been seeing not talking about how I feel, but just my thoughts. Anyway, I've definitely been seeing a lot of the discussion surrounding things like Shein or Temu or like Amazon, and how those kind of bigger companies factor into overconsumption. And I will definitely say, it makes sense that the presence of large companies like Amazon help us, like the average consumer, gain more. more access to certain products. Um, and obviously, like, the more access you have, globalization, all that, you're the more access you have. How do I phrase this? My line of thought here is going like, this Amazon, this larger platform, is making it easier to access the same product from different sources, and let's say one homogeneous product. You'll if you study econ, I'm hoping you're seeing where I'm going with this. Let's say you have like one homogeneous product, one a book or something. Let's not use a book. That's not a good example. Say you have just one product A, homogeneous. Like every seller that sells product A is selling the exact same product. And Amazon makes it really easy for all of said sellers to go to one place where all of the buyers are going to like have access to the same information, and hopefully all of the information that they would need. Um and I'm not sure obviously, but I would reasonably think that that would help lead us a little bit closer towards like perfect competition, um which, hopefully brings prices down for us. um but when we have like access to so many things at cheaper and cheaper prices, um it it leads to us buying more. That just would make the most sense in this like Amazon scenario. um Obviously certain things are getting much more expensive. I live in an area that's like, everything is so expensive here, but it's also a college town and a very expensive state, so it's not the model for the rest of the world. But my perspective, I'm also, freshly into college, just starting to pay for things myself. Of course, my perspective is going to be a little tainted when it comes to things like that, but you know, you give some, you gain some. Um, there's definitely like a little bit of nuance to have with these things. I do understand that a lot of the major complaints for overconsumption, specifically in relation to Temu, Amazon, Shein, are that a lot of these products are being produced unethically, whether that be like child labor or like massively underpaying workers, or the environmental concerns that go along with that. And definitely all valid concerns. 100% all valid concerns. Obviously, when we're producing so many things that are maybe not the greatest for the environment, the more we produce, the worse it is for the environment. Um, and, you know, I definitely think child labor is wrong and underpaying your workers is wrong. Um, I I understand that it is cheaper to produce and it benefits the consumer who's not the one producing it. It benefits the other consumers a lot when we have that cheap labor. Benefits them monetarily. A lot of people, at least the people in my circles, the people I talk to, are saying like, "Oh yeah, I found out, you know, this so and so website uses like child labor to produce their thing, so I don't buy from them anymore." And I've been seeing a lot of that same sentiment go on in like social media and things. Um, and of course, again, if I like, I watch one video too long because it's interesting, and then I see it a bunch. It could just be sort of like a echo chamber I'm living in here, but there's definitely a lot of concern for that I'm seeing. And then there's also this larger issue of even if it wasn't bad for the environment, even if it didn't underpay its worker or didn't require oh my god, if it even if it wasn't bad for the environment, it didn't require underpaying workers, and it didn't require things like child labor or unsafe work practices and everything, kind of under those umbrellas. Is overconsumption okay for us as like human beings? um I think that's more of like a psychology question or something. Definitely not my expertise, but there is a concern of like, is overconsumption like, or overconsumption or accessibility to like oh my god, the stutter is crazy today. um like having everything readily accessible, or having just having everything there and being able to consume so much, negatively affecting the way we look at goods, kind of how we value things, our different utilities and such. And obviously there are also those questions of like, what does it do to us as people to have all of these things present and so readily accessible and just like in our faces all the time? And I don't think I'm qualified to answer that at all, actually. But I've definitely had the thoughts recently of like, along the lines of the over consumption narrative. um I'm definitely one to try to not overconsume and like buy things I don't need. Obviously I am a college student, not that I can buy things I don't need. um but I was thinking about this in the context of um microeconomics. We have this condition for different utilities. So there's these like utility curves, all that. We in microeconomics we assume what we call non-satiation, which basically just says that more of a good is always better. It's always adding something. That assumption can definitely be violated, and we have ways of getting around that. It's not like a necessity or anything, but non satiation is often assumed, and it goes along with principles like diminishing marginal utility and such. Um, but I'm thinking this principle, this assumption of non satiation. I'm thinking about, when does it apply and when does it not apply? The classic example is like food, like pizza, let's say. For your first slice of pizza, you want that so bad. Like you're starving, you're so hungry, you want that pizza so bad. And so you get a lot out of that. You get a lot of use out of it. The second slice of pizza, you don't want it as much. You don't need it as much, at least. But you still want it. And then that third slice of pizza, you're like, I'll still eat it, but it's not going to give me as much value as the first or second. And then the more pizza you have, the less value you're getting out of it. But non satiation says that no matter how many slices of pizza, each one is still going to give you some use. And in reality, or it's each one is going to give you some use. And diminishing marginal utility would say like, it's going to give you less and less use per more slices of pizza you add. But my thing is, what I'm thinking is like along the lines of non-satiation, eventually that next slice of pizza is going to give you negative utility, negative value, because let's say you're on your like seventh slice and somebody offers you the eighth. If you eat that eighth slice, your stomach's gonna hurt. It's gonna be bad for you. You don't want it. It is going to cause you more harm. So that kind of violates the assumption of non-satiation. Not that it's necessary. It's just very nice when we're thinking about like a lot of more theoretical economic problems. Um, and so my point here was this. I'm just trying to think about how this would apply to like an actual good in an actual scenario. And obviously, like a lot of people aren't gonna want that slice of pizza. Like in reality, they probably won't. But I'm sure there's someone that does. I don't know. Um, but I'm thinking like along the lines of like your everyday goods that aren't necessities, just things you like, things for your hobbies, like just things you don't need, but would like. Where is that line for people, and when do we decide that it is that a good is giving us negative value? Um, because like the pizza example, it's very clear. Once it starts to not like once you're not hungry anymore, once you are satiated, like the next slice is gonna actively like hurt your stomach, then that would be the line. But for your average everyday good, let's say like books, like you buy one more, you buy one more, you just keep buying more. When is that line? When do you have too much? Is it when you run out of space, like physical space, or when you buy so many that you can't read them anymore? Like you physically don't have enough time in your life to read all of these books, or just when you don't have any more that you are interested in. Does it give you negative utility because it's or negative value because it's taking up space? Is it where do we draw the line of too much? For I know for a lot of people that I'm seeing on the internet, of course, again, internet, echo chamber, everything. A lot of people that I'm seeing on the internet, they're actively like, here's how to not overconsume. Here is like my fight against overconsumption. Here's how I underconsume, which I'm still very confused about the concept of underconsumption because it's a lot of them I'm thinking are just regular consumption. Anyway, I have my own gripes about that. But I'm thinking, you know, these people they're saying, here's where I draw the line. And it's different for every person, but a lot of them are just like, "Oh, like let's take in like cosmetics for an example. A common theme that I'm seeing right about now is like Project Pan, which is, for those of you who don't know, is like you just it's the purpose is to just get rid of all of the products you have. Use everything you have before you buy anything else. Like don't buy a backup before you run out of the first one. Don't have 9 different things of the same thing, versions of the same thing. Um and that's one way I'm seeing people on the internet like saying, this is how I'm fighting overconsumption, Project Pan. And a lot of them will say like the where they draw the line is one. As long as they have enough to use in the moment, they are at their like peak util they're getting as much value as they can by having one, and having that backup doesn't do anything for them. So that would be where they draw the line. But then I'm also seeing on the other side of this whole debate, like people having these closets full of cosmetics. And yes, a lot of the people I'm seeing have this like overconsumption um are like beauty influencers and things that like need it for their jobs because it's like what they do for work. But even then, like where do we draw the line? I one this is a tangent that has nothing to do with the main argument, just something weird. I saw somebody on TikTok, who shall not be named, um, please don't come for me, who they're about as pale as I am. And for those of you who might be playing this in the background, I'm pale. I blend in with the wall. Like I'm Korean. I'm Korean and white. Like I'm so pale. They are as pale as I am, right? And they have these foundation shades that are like dark. Like they are meant for people with darker skin that are not us. And granted, I understand that in some cases for like concealers or foundations that are darker, you can use them for contouring, bronzer, etc. Why do you need like 9 in a shade that you can't use all over your face? Because I'm seeing I saw them and they're like they have as many dark they have one of every single shade. How I know you're not getting that tan naturally. Unless I mean maybe if you try hard enough you might be able to, but there's no reason that you need to have that dark of a shade. It's ridiculous. You there that I think is a little too far. That's just personally. Obviously, they might have like a brand deal or something where they have to like do the little swatches on their arm and like show everything. That would make sense. But at that point, get like a sample size or something. I don't know. Anyway, tangent over. I definitely I think the Project Pan example is a very good example of people trying to consume less, trying to participate in overconsumption as little as possible. Um I before that kind of trend, unfortunately, I do think it is a trend and hopefully it won't fade out. It might. Um before that trend kind of started becoming popular, I personally was under the impression that that was just what everyone did. I knew like obviously beauty influencers, those kinds of people, and like collectors and stuff. They definitely had more, but just like rows of unopened products, didn't think that was a thing for the average person. And I don't know if it is for the average person, but I'm seeing like many more people than I thought would do that. Like being like, oh yeah, Project Pan. And then they've got like 9 of the same product. And it's just like your average Joe. And I I was just very surprised to see that that was the case. Um I don't know. I didn't think that was like that just wasn't my norm. So, tangent again. You'll notice throughout these podcasts probably, especially the ones where I'm by myself, that I'll go on a lot of tangents. You can probably tell like I've been shaking my leg this whole time. I'm like I won't I'm constantly moving. I'm putting my knees up. Um I'm constantly adjusting things. That's just who I am. There's probably a lot of background noise just from me moving. I have like my little squishy. Oh my gosh, another thing on the overconsumption point. I've seen back in I want to say it started in like 2020 with the Pop It craze. For context, I used to work at a toy store, so I know a thing or two about like children's toys. Um, during the like Pop It craze, I think it was when it started, but there's been like the squishy collectors or the fidget collectors and like how it's the Nitos specifically have gotten so popular. And don't get me wrong, Nito peak peak fidgets, I will tell you. But guys, guys, the people some of these people they have like obviously I recognize that they are collectors, but they also they'll have drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers. And it's like You are not playing with that much. Also, fun fact, some like squishy brands, some fidgets do they don't have like an expiration date, but they'll go bad. Like they'll get rock solid or like the insides will get weird. Like not I don't know how Nitos will last because they haven't been popular for that long, but well, that's not entirely true. But a lot of them will get like rock solid. So they definitely don't last forever. Um so I'm excited to see how that turns out. Interested, let's say. Um and another point I wanted to make along the lines of the Project Pan and beauty collectors and the Nitos and the fidget collectors is just collectors in general, collections of things. I myself do collect things, not like really, I didn't mean to, but there were certain things like CDs. Also, side note, best you can see the reflection. Best album thus far. I'm very excited. I loved Kerosene. I'm excited for the new album. Warning, if you're seeing this, you're not. But if anyone is seeing this that knows who they are, y'all should leave a comment telling them on their videos to tell them to release their stuff because I'm so excited. I just got into them like literally this year, not 2026. Technically 2025 because it was December. Thank you, Rainier, for putting me on. I'm so mad that I had to be put on by someone else. Anyway, my point was, um, I do myself collect things. I'm sure you can see like my little CD collection. I wouldn't say I collect books. I just happen to own some. Um, Shout out to Theory of Moral Sentiments and Wealth of Nations and Das Kapital, all in the background of this video. It's one shelf down, but and then below that I also have below that I also have like vinyl records. I don't I don't collect them because they're very expensive. But like CDs specifically are something you could say I collect. So I'm not completely unfamiliar with the want to own things and like have things present in front of you and want to keep many of them. And I do understand that want. It is for music specifically, like they're all different. And I'm sure literally every collector ever says like they're all different. They all have their own uses. I'm I'm wondering how the concept of collection plays into overconsumption. When does collection become too much? Because I'd say I don't have that many CDs. Like that's not that many. But I've seen some people's CD collections, and obviously it's taken them years and years and years. And I've only started collecting recently. But when does it end? Like when is it too much? I'm sure I'd like there are thousands of albums out there. There are so many more that I like that I don't have. I don't think I need all of them though. How often am I listening to physical media? Obviously it's less than I'd like, but there's there's definitely like when is I think it would be different for each person and for each different good that you're collecting, but there's sentimental values, there's like actual monetary value in some of these things. Like take for example example for example, there's the collectors of like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. Um these people who collect these specific cards, I'd argue that a lot of them don't play, specifically for the Pokemon thing. Working at the toy store again, we had a lot of collectors come in, and the people who played, the children, often didn't get the cards because the collectors would like come in and swoop in and grab them. They don't play. Like they I would talk to them. They don't play. They just wanted them to have something of value or to be able to sell it to somebody who would actually like collect it. But even the collectors who were wanting to keep it for themselves just to have that thing of value don't use them. They just have them on display, and is having them on display just to look at, to have the satisfaction of owning a form of overconsumption because you're not physically using it. Is it just like a show of wealth? Is that overconsumption? Is I'm leaving a lot of unanswered questions here, obviously, and I'm still moving a lot. Um, but I think with collecting, for me personally, I collect things that are just pretty to look at. Like they don't have any use. Like every time I will go to a beach, I'll grab a little bit of if I find any sea glass, I'll grab it. Not like every piece I find, but I'll grab one or two. Do they have any like actual use? No, they're just pretty to look at. I still will collect them. Obviously, it doesn't cost me anything, but it's that point of like, what is even the point of that? Just sentimental value? I don't remember where I got each piece from. It's just pretty to look at. Sorry if you heard my stomach. That was very loud. Um, and there's is having or collecting something just to have it overconsumption. I think a lot of people would say yes. I think a lot of those people aren't collectors. I think as someone who collects something that like has an actual use, I would I would argue to say that I don't know. I don't know. I think for my thing, I think the sea glass is absolutely just useless and I should not because I don't even like it that much. It's on display in my closet. Like I nobody's looking at it. Um I do actually need to like go deposit that back at the beach. Anyway, um there's just a lot of questions to ask surrounding different forms of consumption and kind of how that plays into things, especially with the rise in popularity of social media and the terms of consumption and overconsumption being used in daily life for a lot of people. It's it's a question of how has social media and the presence of us talking about it more affected it being consumption um is obviously I think our consuming habits have changed because of the presence of social media. I there are a lot of things that I own that I would not have if I wasn't on social media. Literally this. Literally would not own if I wasn't on. Not only the artist specifically I would not own if I wasn't on, well, actually maybe. But a lot some of the artists I specifically would have never seen them because of social media, but I probably wouldn't be collecting CDs. I know that vinyl has gotten a lot more popular, like as an example. Like it became a trend to collect vinyl. And that media form might have like died. Probably wouldn't have, but there's a very good chance that it could have like it probably would have been a lot smaller, a lot less popular of a hobby. And I think it's just important to have these kinds of conversations and think about it when you are actually consuming. When you're this is going to sound so stupid. I like even in the day to day, the other day I went to the grocery store, right? Fred Meyer specifically. And I was thinking about my consumption. And yes, this is probably because I'm just a little econ nerd, but nonetheless, I was looking at notebooks for next quarter and I was thinking about the utility that each one would give me and how much utility I'm getting from each unit that each bundle contained per dollar. It's a whole I did a whole like analysis, and I even like I talked to my econ friends while I was in the store. I called them. Well, I called one of them. I Snapchatted a few. It's I talked to them about my level of utility per each bundle and what my consumption meant to me for each unit of each thing, each paper unit, I guess. And I was thinking about, do I even need this because of the presence of the digital version, like a iPad and a like little writing utensil for iPads. Oh my gosh, Apple Pencil. And I was just thinking, like, those kind of analysis, I know that the average person probably doesn't do that, but it is important to think, I think at least, that it is important to kind of think about your consumption habits as you are consuming. This isn't to say that overconsumption, underconsumption, because God, I'm saying consume a lot. Um, Overconsumption, underconsumption are, you know, an issue for each person individually, but I definitely think it is important to just think about our consumption habits, how that affects the environment, how that affects other people, how that affects our personal selves, our space, our budgets, our different things like that. And obviously, the average, I would say a lot of people I know, at least, do think about consumption in relation to their own budget. And do I even have space for this thing? That kind of regular, average thought when buying something. But I just would urge people to think about how they are consuming and kind of how that affects them, the people around them, and like how that reflects the factors that influence their behavior. I don't know if that's a good place to end it. My Actually, I have an example. My example of that would be like the social media example. I When I buy these things that I collect, CDs, um I think, would I own this if I wasn't being told by someone over the internet that it was a good thing? Is it actually a good thing, or am I being influenced to think it's a good thing? Think it's something I need? The answer to those questions that you ask yourself maybe won't determine whether or not you'll buy the thing, but it's still important to have these thoughts. I think at least that it is. And hopefully you'll listen to this and you'll think, "Dang." Next time you're at the grocery store, you'll think, "Dang, what is influencing me to consume this? What are the effects of my consumption on me, myself, and I, on me and the people around me and the whole world? What is my consumption now a reflection of? What has influenced me to consume in this way? And is it a good thing that I'm being influenced like this? Is it a bad thing? How does that affect me? Things like that. I hope maybe not everyone will have those marginal utility thoughts. Um, and marginal utility and consumption bundle thoughts. I understand that nobody thinks like that but economists, but it's definitely an important question to ask yourself while consuming. Maybe not every day. Obviously, don't think about something again and again and again and just like overstress yourself out for no reason. But it's an important academic thought to express. And I hope that this conversation by myself with myself has given you some takeaway, some thoughts. I know that there definitely was a lot of rambling and tangents. Um, if there's any points that I left out or that I started and didn't finish, please just let me know. If you have any questions, comments are always going to be on. And yeah, I hope you tune in to the next episode. And I have loved making the first, not the first technically, but the first real episode of Visible Hands. And again, this is just a, a place to discuss the influencing factors to different things in our world. You get it. I'm sure you get it because I've stated it so many times. Anyway, I really have enjoyed making this, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye. Side note that I forgot to mention, please let me know what topics you would like me to discuss further in the future, and either I will discuss them by myself or I will hopefully get a friend to discuss them with me. Um, any questions, comments, or concerns, just leave down below. Okay, bye for real this time.